Gabriel Thornton was reviewing acquisition reports on his laptop when the doorbell rang at 11:45 on a cold October night. At 34, as CEO of Thornton Logistics, one of the country's fastest-growing supply chain companies, Gabriel was used to working late. What he wasn't used to was unexpected visitors at his penthouse, especially at this hour. He set down his scotch and walked to the door, checking the security camera first. The screen showed his covered front entrance, rain pouring down in sheets, but no one was visible at the door. Probably kids playing pranks, he thought, about to return to his work. Then he heard it, a sound that made his blood run cold. A baby crying. Gabriel yanked open the door, and his heart stopped. There, in a wicker basket on his doorstep, was an infant, wrapped in a pink blanket. The child couldn't have been more than a few months old, maybe 3 or 4. Its blonde curls plastered to her head by the rain that had seeped through the basket's covering. She was crying, her small face red with distress and cold. Clutched in the baby's tiny hand was a note, written in shaky handwriting on lined paper. "You promised to protect us. Don't break it." Gabriel's hands shook as he picked up the basket and brought it inside, his mind racing. He set the basket gently on his couch and carefully lifted the baby, who was soaked and shivering. He grabbed a throw blanket and wrapped it around her, holding her close to warm her. "It's okay," he murmured, though his voice was anything but calm. "You're safe now. You're safe." The baby's cries softened to whimpers as she felt the warmth. Gabriel looked at her tiny face, so vulnerable and trusting, and felt a fierce protectiveness surge through him despite his confusion and shock. He read the note again, trying to make sense of it. "You promised to protect us." Who was us? And what promise? He'd never made any such promise that he could remember. Was this some kind of mistake? Or worse, some kind of scam? But looking at this freezing, frightened baby, he knew he couldn't worry about that now. She needed immediate care. He called 911, explaining the situation, then frantically searched online for how to care for an infant while he waited. The police arrived within 15 minutes, along with a social worker. They examined the baby, who appeared healthy despite her ordeal, and took the note for analysis. They asked Gabriel dozens of questions. Did he know who the mother might be? Had he had any recent relationships? Could this be his child? "No," Gabriel insisted. "I have no idea who this baby is or why she was left here. I've been single for over a year. This isn't my child." The social worker, a kind woman named Patricia, looked at him with sympathy. "Mr. Thornton, babies don't get abandoned on random doorsteps. Whoever left her here knew you and believed you would help. The note suggests you made some kind of promise to someone. Think carefully. Is there anyone you told you'd protect or help? Anyone who might have taken that as a commitment?" Gabriel racked his brain, going through the past year of his life. Business associates, former employees, friends, family. Nothing made sense. "There's no one," he said, frustration and fear mixing in his voice. "I would remember making a promise like that." The police began reviewing his building's security footage while Patricia prepared to take the baby into protective custody. As she reached for the infant, now sleeping peacefully in Gabriel's arms, something made him hesitate. "What happens to her?" he asked. "She'll go into emergency foster care while we try to locate her mother or any family," Patricia explained. "Given the circumstances, this will likely become a criminal investigation for child abandonment." Gabriel looked down at the sleeping baby. She'd stopped shivering, her tiny hand curled around his finger in her sleep. The thought of handing her over to strangers, of her being passed from place to place while bureaucracy ground slowly forward, made his chest ache. "Can I keep her?" The words were out before he'd fully thought them through. "Temporarily, I mean, until you find her mother. I can hire a nurse, provide everything she needs. She's already been through trauma tonight. Moving her again seems cruel." Patricia and the police exchanged glances. "Mr. Thornton, that's highly irregular. We'd need to do a background check. Inspect your home. Ensure you're capable of providing appropriate care. Then do it, Gabriel said. Tonight, if you have to. But please, don't take her to another strange place with more strange people. Whoever left her here, they left her with me for a reason. Maybe I don't understand that reason yet, but until we do, shouldn't we honor what her mother wanted? After 2 hours of discussion, background checks, and a rapid home inspection, the authorities agreed to a temporary emergency placement. Gabriel would care for the baby under the supervision of social services while they investigated. Patricia helped him set up a borrowed crib in his guest room and left him with supplies, formula, diapers, and a long list of instructions. When everyone finally left at 3 in the morning, Gabriel found himself alone with a sleeping infant he didn't know, trying to process how his life had changed completely in the span of a few hours. The next morning, Gabriel called his assistant and cleared his schedule for the week. He hired a professional nanny named Claire, a grandmotherly woman with 30 years of experience, to help him navigate the basics of infant care. He converted his guest room into a proper nursery, buying everything a baby could need. But while he cared for the child, who he'd started calling Hope for lack of any other name, his mind never stopped trying to solve the mystery. Who had left her, and why? The police provided him with copies of the security footage. It showed a young woman with long red hair approaching his door at 11:30, wearing a rain-soaked dress. She'd placed the basket down, rung the doorbell, and then fled. The camera had caught a partial glimpse of her face. It's pale and streaked with tears, but not enough for facial recognition. Gabriel studied that face for hours, trying to remember where he'd seen it. She looked familiar, but he couldn't place her. 3 days after Hope arrived, his head of security called with information. They'd enhanced the footage and caught something, a hospital wristband on the young woman's arm, partially visible. Using contacts at local hospitals, they'd narrowed it down. A woman matching her description had given birth at Mercy Hospital 3 months ago and left against medical advice shortly after. Her name was Isabel Porter. The name hit Gabriel like a physical blow. Isabel Porter. He did know that name. 2 years ago, Isabel had been a temp worker at Thornton Logistics, brought in to help with a massive data entry project. She'd been young, maybe 21 or 22, quiet and hardworking. Gabriel had barely interacted with her directly, but he remembered something else. He remembered the day he'd found her crying in the parking garage after her shift. Her boyfriend had shown up drunk and aggressive, demanding money. Gabriel had intervened, telling the man to leave and asking Isabel if she was okay. She'd broken down, explaining that her boyfriend was abusive, that she was trying to leave him but had nowhere to go and no money saved. Gabriel had helped her that day. He'd given her contact information for domestic violence resources, written her a check to help with deposits on a new apartment, and told her something he'd almost forgotten. If you ever need help, if you're ever in danger, you can come to me. I promise I'll protect you. He'd meant it as a general offer of support, the kind of thing you say to someone in crisis. But to Isabel, desperate and scared, it must have meant so much more. It had been a lifeline, a promise she'd held on to. Gabriel immediately called Detective Maurice Opta, handling the case, and shared what he remembered. A search for Isabel Porter began in earnest. They found her 2 days later in a hospital 30 miles away. She'd been admitted with severe injuries, broken ribs, a fractured jaw, internal bleeding. She'd been beaten nearly to death by her boyfriend, same one Gabriel had confronted 2 years ago. When Gabriel arrived at the hospital, escorted by Detective Maurice, Isabel was barely conscious. Her face was swollen and bruised, her body connected to monitors in 4 lines. But when she saw Gabriel, recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by fear. Hope, she whispered through her wired jaw. My baby, is she safe? She's safe, Gabriel assured her, pulling a chair close to her bedside. She's been with me since you left her. Isabel, why didn't you call? Why didn't you come to me directly? Tears leaked from Isabel's swollen eyes. He was watching me. Derek, my ex. He found out about the baby. Said he'd take her, sell her. I was so scared. I tried to get away, but he caught me. He beat me and left me for dead. When I came to, all I could think about was Hope. I couldn't let him find her. I remembered what you said, that you'd protect me, so I took her to you. Her breathing was labored, painful. I know I had no right to ask. We barely know each other. But you were the only person who'd ever helped me, who didn't want something back. The only person I trusted. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for putting this on you. Gabriel took her hand gently. Isabel, you did the right thing. Hope is safe. And now, you're safe too. Derek has been arrested. He's not going to hurt you or your daughter ever again. I can't take care of her, Isabel said, her voice breaking. Even after I heal, I have nothing. No home, no job, no family. I thought maybe you could find her a good home. Someone who could give her the life I can't. Gabriel looked at this broken young woman who'd used her last bit of strength to save her child. Who'd remembered a promise he'd half forgotten. Who'd trusted him with her most precious treasure. And he made a decision that surprised even himself. What if that home was with me? He said quietly. Isabel stared at him in confusion. What? These past 5 days, with Hope, I've been trying to figure out who I was before she arrived. A workaholic who'd built a successful company, but had no real life outside of it. No family, few real friends. I was successful, but empty. Hope changed that. She gave me purpose beyond profit margins and growth strategies. He leaned forward. Isabel, I want to adopt Hope. Permanently. I'll make sure you're a part of her life as much as you want to be. She'll know you're her mother, know your story, know how much you loved her. But let me give her the stable home you want for her. Let me keep the promise I made to you, to protect you both. Isabel sobbed, overwhelmed. You barely know us. Why would you do this? Because a baby was left on my doorstep with a note reminding me of a promise, Gabriel said. And I'm a man who keeps his promises. Because in 5 days, that little girl has changed my entire perspective on what matters in life. Because I think maybe you and Hope came into my life for a reason. The legal process took months. Isabel spent 6 weeks recovering from her injuries, during which time Gabriel visited her regularly, bringing photos and videos of Hope. He helped her get into a transitional housing program, supported her as she pressed charges against Derek, who was ultimately sentenced to 15 years in prison for attempted murder. Isabel, still traumatized and struggling with PTSD, made the heartbreaking decision to allow Gabriel to adopt Hope. She knew she wasn't in a place to be the mother her daughter needed, but Gabriel's offer meant Hope would be loved and cared for while Isabel healed. They worked out an open adoption agreement. Isabel would be part of Hope's life, visiting regularly, being identified as her birth mother when Hope was old enough to understand. Gabriel would support Isabel's recovery and education, helping her build a stable life. A year later, the adoption was finalized. Gabriel stood in the courthouse holding 1-year-old Hope, now officially Hope Thornton, with Isabel beside him. She'd come so far in therapy, enrolled in community college, working part-time at a women's shelter, helping other domestic violence survivors. Thank you, Isabel said, tears streaming down her face as she watched Gabriel sign the final papers. Thank you for keeping your promise. Thank you for being the kind of man who meant it when you said you'd protect us. Gabriel looked at Hope, who was grabbing at his tie and babbling happily, oblivious to the significance of the moment. Thank you for trusting me, for reminding me that the promises we make matter, even the ones we don't think anyone will remember. As Hope grew, she became the center of Gabriel's world. He cut back his hours at Thornton Logistics, hiring a co-CEO to share responsibilities so he could be present for his daughter. He attended Mommy and Me classes, learned to do pigtails, threw elaborate birthday parties, and discovered that success in business paled compared to being the person your child ran to with outstretched arms. Isabel remained part of their lives, healing slowly but steadily. Hope called Gabriel Daddy and Isabel Belle, and as she grew older, they explained her unique family situation in age-appropriate ways. Far from being confused, Hope seemed to understand that she was lucky to have so many people who loved her. On Hope's 5th birthday, Gabriel stood in his living room, surrounded by children and chaos, streamers and cake, watching his daughter open presents with Isabel sitting beside her. He thought back to that rainy night when an unexpected delivery had arrived at his door, when a desperate mother had left her most precious treasure with him based on a promise. He'd almost forgotten that promise had changed 3 lives. It had saved Isabel, giving her the time and support to heal and rebuild. It had given Hope a stable, loving home with 2 people committed to her happiness. And it had transformed Gabriel from a successful but disconnected businessman into a father, teaching him that real wealth wasn't measured in profit margins but in bedtime stories, goodnight kisses, and small arms wrapped around your neck, saying, "I love you, Daddy." Later that evening, after the guests had left and Hope was tucked into bed, Gabriel found the note that had arrived with her 5 years ago. He'd kept it in his desk drawer, a reminder of the night that changed everything. "You promised to protect us. Don't break it." He hadn't broken it. He'd kept that promise in ways he never imagined he would, in ways that ended up protecting and transforming him as much as them. Because sometimes the promises we make casually, the offers of help we extend without thinking deeply about them, turn out to be the most important commitments we ever make. Sometimes a desperate person takes us at our word and trusts us with everything they have. And sometimes, when we honor those promises, despite the cost and inconvenience, we receive blessings we never knew we needed. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of unexpected families, kept promises, and the power of compassion. Leave a comment below about a promise someone kept to you that changed your life, or about a time when your casual offer of help became something more significant. Share your thoughts on how we can all be more mindful of the promises we make and the impact they can have on vulnerable people who are desperate enough to believe in them. Remember, the words we speak in passing might be lifelines to someone drowning. Choose them carefully, mean them sincerely, and be prepared to honor them when someone takes you at your word. Sometimes the promises that cost us the most end up giving us the greatest gifts.